It's our political edition. Get out and vote today, folks. We're going to vote for Penn State. That's what you really need to do, folks. I couldn't believe it, Mike, when the new polls came out for the BCS. And our Nittany Lions, well, you got to be neutral. I don't have to be.
Come on.
The Nittany Lions were still third. Texas loses to Texas Tech. I think for sure Penn State's going to go from 3 in last week's poll up to 2. Alabama will be number 1. No, Penn State stays the same, and Texas Tech jumps from, 7? All the way to 2?
Well, 7.
What's going on?
7 in the computer portion of the BCS rankings.
Okay.
And
Explain.
Penn State was 3 in the computer portion. The BCS is 2 polls, the Harris Interactive poll and the coaches poll.
Okay.
And then it's the average of 6 computer rankings is the third element.
Oh, okay.
And
technical stuff.
In the computer rankings, Penn State was third after the Ohio State game, and Texas Tech was 7th. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And I didn't think it was mathematically possible for them to make that big a move as they did. I was really surprised. I didn't think there was any chance of that happening because to this point, Texas Tech has not played a real tough schedule.
Not yet.
Penn State has not either, but Texas Tech really has not played a real tough schedule. Of course, that's a great win over Texas at home,
Sure.
And they will play a tough schedule from here on out. But I was just I was astonished by that.
It opens up some other questions for me, Mike.
It does. It opens up some important questions about this sport, I think.
And one of those questions that's coming up right now about the sport, and there's been something I've been scratching my head about for years, but one of them's coming up with Penn State this year is if Penn State stays at 3 after Texas Tech has an impressive win, what's that say for a couple weeks from now? Could they get passed by a one-loss team? I'm going to throw in there Florida has 1 loss. And they're in a tough SEC. They also the Big 12 is where Texas Tech's at, and there's Oklahoma, there's Texas. It's a tough conference as well. So my first question, the first thought I have is, can they get passed by a one-loss team? Let's throw Florida out there.
I don't know. I don't know the math. I can't do the math on this. I can't crunch it. But it seems like it's certainly plausible to me. I mean, if Florida wins out, which will probably include a win over Alabama, you got to think that would count at least as much as Texas Tech's win over then the number 1 team, Texas. Here's what's going on here. This is really interesting. Sports Illustrated covered the Ohio State-Penn State game, did a game story.
Sure.
And the story emphasized, this was Neanderthal offense. It set the cause of offense back 3 decades. It was Woody Hayes and off tackle plays, and that's not really what the game was at all. I guarantee you that if LSU and Alabama would have been the uniforms that those kids were in, the story nationally would have been all about the intensity and the athleticism and the speed and the explosiveness of the athletes on the field. And this is the perception that Penn State is going to have to get past if it's going to play for the national championship about the Big Ten.
So is there a negative perception out there with Penn State and the Big Ten, and that's sort of playing into this year?
Penn State is being badly hurt by the last 2 national championship games in which Ohio State got blown out by an SEC team in each case, and by Ohio State going out to USC earlier this year and getting hammered. I think that's really impacting the way that the Big Ten is perceived nationally right now.
One more question on this subject. How is Coach Paterno's his reputation, his coaching reputation, play into this?
Well, it might be a small factor because, remember, one of the polls, a third of the BCS formula, is the coach's poll. Okay. And, he is, I think, by most of the coaching fraternity, Joe is really revered. And there was a belief way back in 1994 when Nebraska won it, there was kind of this feeling that people wanted to give it to Tom Osborne.
That's what I thought.
Does that mean that they did not want to give it to Joe? Or is it going to mean that now they do want to give it to Joe?
Well, Joe's going out. Let's give him one more for the, Joe had one at that time. Osborne didn't. That was always my factor why Osborne got that first.
Joe actually had 2.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
He had 2. Sure.
Yeah. So it may be a factor, but if Penn State wins out, this is going to be a really big controversy. This is going to be something to watch over the next few weeks.
Joe would have 3 if it wasn't for Nixon. Sorry, we'll end it on that.